Now playing California Triathlon Soup.
Okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of California Triathlon Soup. Today's special guest is Miss Sarah Haskins. Welcome, Sarah.
Hey, hello. Thanks for having me on.
Sarah, we were talking in the break about all of us being endurance athletes, but we have had so much fun getting the technology sorted out. I really appreciate you making that through with us.
No problems. No problems. I'm glad I had my husband's my tech support in that area, so he helped me get it set up. So.
Well, fantastic. Well, so I know who Sarah Haskins is. I can go through your bio, but I think it would be great if you told everybody who Sarah Haskins is.
Sure. Well, I've been, as far as the triathlete goes, I've been racing for 14 years. So I feel like I'm pretty ancient as far as professional athletes, been around for a long time. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, and recently, almost 2 years ago, I moved back to St. Louis and just had my second child last year. I have a 4-year-old girl, Caroline, and almost 1-year-old son, Connor. And I'm just about ready to get back into racing in my 14th year, as I said. And, I'm mom is my primary, role at the moment. And then I also am mixing in training and just enjoying all the little moments in life at the moment and enjoying all those big milestones, like my son's first birthday coming up, and having fun along the way.
So when you say you're ancient, and I think you said 14 years of doing triathlon,
Correct.
Is that right? But ancient is actually 37. So you started, right out of college.
Yep, I did. I swam all growing up, and then I ended up running in college. I ran high school cross country and track as well, and then um, I became a single sport athlete in college, mainly because my school didn't have a swim team. So I went ahead and just focused on running. I did cross country, indoor and outdoor track. And yeah, when I graduated college, I knew I wanted to keep um, just working out and training and staying fit. And triathlon was something that I always wanted to try ever since I saw it debut in Sydney in 2000. So then I just kind of dove into triathlon and started racing professionally the year after I graduated college.
Now you raced it in Beijing in 2008. I can imagine from your bio, here's a really good runner. Here's a really good swimmer. Were there outside forces coaching? Did USAT find you somewhere, or did you have to find them?
Yeah, back when I was doing it, I kind of found them. I started racing. Let's say I graduated college in May of 2003. I remember I did my last conference track meet end of May 2003, and then 3 weeks later, I did my first triathlon. So I didn't have a lot of cycling under my belt, but a friend in town um, who had been racing triathlons for 20 plus years, my dad just kind of dropped him off at his office and said, "Teach Sarah how to ride a bike." So that's kind of how I got that summer of 2003. I learned how to bike, and then um, it was I was racing in the St. Louis area, and then some I had posted some wins in the age group, to the local tries here, And I can't even remember who mentioned, but some of the people were saying, hey, there's a resident team in Colorado Springs. You should apply for it. So I looked up online what the requirements were, and I submitted an application. And with that being said, I went out there and kind of like dropped off a resume, and I had and then I was told at the time I needed to write an essay. I think it was like a 6 or 7 page essay of why I wanted to be a part of the program and why I wanted to be a professional, shoot for, I guess, the Olympics. And then I had to, since my swim time was so old, I hadn't swam competitively since I was a high school, even though I had made the cutoff. My swim time was old. I had to confirm a swim with a new swim time. So I had to kind of get back in the pool and train for that swim time. And then basically after kind of 6 months to 9 months of trying to get, recruit into the program, I was accepted. So that's how it went. So I say I did a lot of kind of trying to get in on my part, just because I was so new to the sport. I hadn't really done a professional race. So I had to kind of prove to them that I had those swim and run times.
And that puts you in well into 2004. So you missed the 2004 opportunity potentially, but then you had 4 solid years to train for Beijing.
Correct. Yep. Oh, I definitely would not have been ready in 2004. I mean, I just started racing professionally in 2004. I did my first race. So, yeah, but I had a whole 4 years to learn before trying to qualify in 2008. And I did. So that was, be able to qualify. And I feel like the Olympics was definitely, not looking back now, quite early in my career.
And the day that you qualified and became an Olympian, how for all those folks that like myself and pretty much everybody else, I would assume listening, what was that like, the day that you qualified to be an Olympian, when you was like, yeah, I'm going to go to the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I had worked so hard for all those 4 years. I remember there's a saying at the Olympic Training Center that says it's not every 4 years, it's every day. And that really rings true, I think, to any Olympic athlete that's in that 4 year process of trying to qualify. And when it actually happens, yeah, I mean, it's an amazing feeling because that's a goal of mine ever since I was a kid. I mean, first, when I was a little kid, I always dreamed about, swimming and looking at all the Olympic swimmers. And then to come to find out is in triathlon. Yeah, and just I had my family there. It was in Hy-Vee in June of 2006, and it wasn't too far, so that all my family from Missouri could drive up. I had family members from Minnesota come down, so it was great to be able to celebrate with them. And at the same time, there was a bit of relief because it was quite a long process. It was the third trials race over the past year, and so something that you've been kind of knocking at the door for a year, it was just kind of, in a sense, a relief as well, just to finally punch that ticket and then switch the focus to, okay, now what? Now I've got to focus on competing at the Olympics.
So in swimming, the nationals for swimming just, I guess, happened this last week, and I know a bunch of collegiate swimmers, and they hit the A times, the B times. Back in 2006, what was that process like? Was it okay? There's one race, and the first 3 young women and the first 3 young men who win this race are going, or how was that selection process back in 2006 for Beijing?
Yeah, so it started in the fall. Well, it started in the fall of 2007. There was 3 races that were the selected qualifiers, and of those 3 races, it was basically the first 2. It was the highest finisher at those races, assuming that they were in the top 8, I believe, automatically qualified. It was either the top 8 or the top 10. It was a while ago. And the first one was on the actual course, which was in the fall of 2007. I believe it was in September on the Beijing course. And that's where Laura qualified, Laura Bennett. And then the next race was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in April. And that was not, that was more like a continental cup. The first race was a World Cup with all of the international competitors. The second race was just basically, I think, 15 U.S. women on the start line who had qualified based on points. And Julie Swale Ertel, she finished first, and then I finished second. And then the last race was a World Cup in Des Moines, Iowa, and that one was a little bit different because it wasn't based on the first or second, the first American to cross the line. It was based on accumulation of the previous two plus your score on that third race. So there's a little bit more math involved in that race. And I think the way it wound up, um, I had to get, I think it was like a top I don't, it was like a top 13 or 30th. I can't remember. I ended up sixth. Laura Bennett was fifth. I was sixth. So, kind of knowing that Laura had already qualified and me following right behind her, we didn't have to put a lot of the math into the game on that day. I knew that I had qualified right when I crossed the line. So that was a great feeling.
So that happened in I guess 2017 in Des Moines, Iowa, huh?
Yep. It was June of 2008 in Des Moines, Iowa. So, and then really it was about, I think, a little over 2 months for the triathlon in the games in August. I believe it was mid-August was the triathlon race.
Did you and did you and I guess it's different for every group, but did you and Julie and Laura, did you guys like then train together through Beijing, or did you just go back to training separately and hey, I'll see you at the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think leading up to a big event like that, we all felt that we'd stay in our normal training environment. So I was training at the time at the training center in Colorado Springs with the resident team. And Laura, I think she was in Boulder at the time training, and Julie was in California. So we did meet up before the games, just a week or so before, a week or two before the games. We trained in Jeju Island, away from Beijing, in Korea, just to kind of have more of a training environment. In Beijing, it was a bit harder to, cycle. We couldn't really exactly just get out and ride on the roads. And with the Olympics going on, getting to a pool would be a little bit trickier. So USA Triathlon decided to have a training base about 10, I think it was 10 days before the games in Jeju Island, South Korea. So yeah, we, in a sense, right before the games, we trained together during kind of the taper time, and yeah, we went to. I remember some fun memories from Jeju Island. So it was a crazy place. The driving there was insane. Like the drivers there, they didn't like to follow the stop signs. So, but it was beautiful. There's beautiful mountains there, very hilly, warm. The people there were very kind, and a lot of great memories. And like to eat bugs. We went down to swim in the open water, and there was stands out, open market stands with selling crickets and this and that for snacks. So some fun memories from that trip.
I have had a chance to through work and friends to go to Korea. I don't know, maybe 10 times. And both Korea and China, and I love that area and the people. If I remember correctly, I was in China early August of 2008. So it was right before, because I think it was August 8th, 2008. They wanted to have it 888, with being lucky. That was I think, opening day. Did you worry at all about the, pollution and things like that at that time?
Well, I had competed there in 2006 and 2007, and it was a little difficult with the pollution. We actually were all kind of tested to see if we needed, inhalers and this and that. And I actually qualified for some of that. I mean, so it was a bit of a challenge in 2006 and 2007. However, when we landed in 2008, it was the first time that we saw mountains in Beijing. We were shocked. I mean, we could see the horizon instead of only being able to see maybe 400 or 600 meters in front of you due to the thick smog. It was great for the Olympics because China really did shut down factories. They limited cars on the road, I think starting like a month or two out before the games. So during the games, I didn't have an issue with the smog at all. So that was really nice.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They had shut down almost every factory, and to really prepare for those Olympics. That's very cool. You and again, so you competed, and did you have the day that you wanted in 2008? Did the family, your family came there? Maybe talk a little bit about your experience in Beijing.
Yeah. So earlier in that year in Vancouver, I remember I had finished second at the World Championships. And I think after that race, I put an expectation on myself to try and medal. I think anytime you go to, you toe the line at the Olympics, a medal is always a goal. Um, and for me, I was really, really focused on that. And, with that, trying to do a couple breakaways on the bike. But every race is so different. Ended up trying a couple breaks, not being successful, and finished 11th. And I remember after the race, I was slightly disappointed in my performance. But now looking back, I knew that I gave it everything I could in the training leading up. I gave it everything I could on that race day. So I'm really happy just to have gone through that process to qualify and to finish 11th. I'm really proud of my performance.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So part of California Triathlon Soup is we try to do two parts triathlon, one part cultural relevance, and a little bit of fun. For all those folks we will who are listening, and we like to pick that we have at least 6 or 8 people listening, which is nice. It's gone up from four to five to 6 to 8, so that's really nice. Um, we You really should get a chance to take a look at Sarah's 2018 blog, and she. One thing that I'd love to cover is the fact that you are very good to your sponsors. I'd love to talk a little bit about that. And you have a lot of long-term sponsors, and you cover them pretty well. But the thing that struck me the most was some great pictures right off the bat from Caroline and Connor, and those are some good-looking kids. Those are some great kids. I bet you they wear you out. So one of the things that the group that we have, California Triathlon, we have 52% women. We have 75% women in our leadership group. And when we were setting up our first season of California Triathlon Soup, I wanted to hear about what it was like to be an elite athlete and be a mother of two, and then manage a career and manage all those sponsors over a 14, 15-year period.
Yeah. I mean, really, for me, a lot has changed for me as far as like my training and my lifestyle. I mean, looking back even from that Olympic period, and then even, from 2010, 11, 12, that period, I focused more on Olympic distance non draft. And then, recently it's been a whole lot different with kids and balancing, well, first, Caroline, and then balance after Caroline, and now recently with two kids. And I'm sure, a lot of moms can relate. It's that balancing act and trying to figure it all out is it takes time. And then right when you think you have it figured out, there's definitely, a change in the schedule, a change in the system, and you got to figure it all out again. Um, but for me, with my sponsors, I couldn't be more thankful, especially with them kind of sticking through my long career that I've had, and being off a couple years in 2013 and off most of last year in 2017 during pregnancy, and even before that, having injuries and having to miss training for a big race and having to miss a big race I've been preparing for due to injury. switch unfortunately happens. But like I've been with Zipp for well over 10 years. I've been with ISM Saddle since 2007. Actually, funny story about ISM seat. I remember my husband found a prototype in the USAT office in 2006 and said, "Oh, I think Sarah would love the saddle." They were kind of the first ones with that open middle. And I just started riding with it. And Steve Toll was at the St. Anthony's Triathlon and was taking pictures and was like, "Who is that? Like, she's riding my saddle." And so that's kind of how that connection started. And yeah, Rudy Project I've been with, for years, 10 years back in the day, and Fuji since 2010. And I actually started off with blueseventy way back in the day in 2005, 6, and recently gotten back with them and been with SRAM the last 3 or 4 years. And some of my sponsors have been more recent. Triflare, local company I've been with for a couple years, and Mission, it's a partnership with them that I've been with since 2007. And I have, like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today without the help of my sponsors. And I think as a professional athlete, sponsors are critical for us being able to race and train and have careers, and to be able to focus solely on training, and being able to, train during the day versus having a job, during the day and then trying to train at night and early in the morning. And that's just critical for recovery and being able to have success at the races, and having product that you believe in. And like I said, I always like to have sponsors that, I fully believe in the product, that I believe in, and product that works for me. And I believe that it's fast and durable. So.
Yeah, I had talked to a unnamed pro a couple years ago, and that pro said that her agent had got her a new nutrition bar, unnamed. We'll leave it unnamed, and she started, consuming the product and was just like, "Ugh, this stuff is not working for me at all."
Uh-huh.
And she for 2 seasons, due to an agreement, she actually took the wrapper and would open the wrapper, put out the product that, the sponsored product that she didn't like, and put in the old product that she did like. She's like, I'm not going to sacrifice my performance based on a sponsorship.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. You have to, and I think for it to work, you have to genuinely love the product and believe in the product. Just to be able to, and it's changed a lot too. Now there's social media, like, it was just like Facebook and Twitter, and then like just recently there's Instagram. And so, and that's a huge part of sponsorship now, where maybe back in, 2006, before, it was more visibility at the races, being on the race kit. Obviously, that's still a big important part too. And I had a situation with shoes. The shoes that I wore in the Olympics just weren't really working for me back then. And I came back to the company and I just said, "Look, thank you so much for the support, but, I was getting some blisters on my feet back then." And I just said, I really, cannot, I don't want to support, even though like there was a contract with money, but I said, I just can't support something that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't feel right. And running shoes are something that are so individualized. They may work great for someone, but you just have to find that right shoe that fits for you. I don't know if I mentioned Rudy Project. They've been with me for a while. I just want to make sure I didn't miss a sponsor.
You did. And Rudy Project,
Yeah.
they're a great company. We've worked with Paul for, I guess a couple years. They do a really good job, and they support grassroots racing. So would you say that? And again, I'll finish on this, but would you say that if you look at your race calendar this year, I think when I went back and looked at your results over the past few years, it looks like you have an affinity to go do the Escape series. So do you also have relationships with races where you'll go doing appearances for races and things like that?
I have in the past. I don't currently. I don't have someone. A few other people have asked me about that with the Escape series, and I don't. At current, it's more for me doing the Escape series just for the simple fact that I love doing Olympic distance non-draft, and currently in the U.S. that is what we have. In the past there was the Lifetime series and also Lifetime or Des Moines with the High V Triathlon, and those about what is it 3 or 4 years ago now, those cut out and ended. And for me, I raced last year and this year with just time wise with the kids. It's a great distance to train for, and I'm still nursing Connor, so it's a good distance for me to be able to continue to do that successfully for him and for me. But no, there have been opportunities in the past where an appearance fee for a race here and there, which is definitely an added bonus, and especially if a race director is willing to pay for travel. And with the Escape series, it's tied into Alcatraz, and that this year uh, they always will help pay for travel for that race, which is great, and there's quite a bit of prize money on the line this year, which is a big incentive.
Got it. Yeah. And I wouldn't be doing due diligence. So one of our sponsors for our team is Performance Bike, which is owned by Fuji Kestrel. And we're huge fans of, I think last year in July, they had debuted the Kestrel 5000 SL. What is your steed of choice in terms of triathlon bike?
So for me, I've been on the Norcom street since 2012, and I love that bike. I remember the first time I got on that bike. Um, it was at least for the primary race distance I focused on, which was short course non-draft. It was extremely responsive in and out of corners, which a lot of the short course races can be still somewhat technical. So I love that fact, and great for getting up out of the saddle for a climb, and at the same time extremely aerodynamic, which is important for a non-draft race. And most importantly, I felt extremely comfortable on the bike, and powerful. And that's still the bike I'm on right now, riding. I love it. I'm going to be riding it this year as well.
And what percentage of your time would you say you're on your trainer versus versus out on the street riding?
Well, that has definitely changed a lot in the last few years. When I lived in Claremont, Florida, I'd say 75% of my rides were outside, and I'd say just a quarter, 25% were inside. Um, Currently, especially lately, we've had a horrible spring here in Missouri. It's rained, I feel like, for the past 2 weeks, which I don't believe is typical because I remember last year at this time when I was pregnant, it was sunny and beautiful every day right now. But um, and especially just with having a baby, the trainer is very time efficient. So I'd say right now I am probably at about 90% on the trainer for my riding. So I think I've been out a couple of times this month. Now, once summer rolls around, and it'll probably switch up to about 50-50, um, maybe 50-50. I still probably will be doing most of my maybe 60-70% of my riding on the trainer just because time efficiency with the kids, and the fact that if they need me I'm right here, or my husband's watching the kids, and I typically, um, if I'm going to be riding alone, I prefer to just be on the trainer. um, I When I ride outside, I always like to have a training partner with me, and that's usually my husband or a friend here in town that rides.
Well, and I've talked to different even age groupers or pros where they've said 100% of the time I'm on my trainer, I don't have to worry about getting hit by a car or any such nonsense.
Exactly. I mean, it's yeah. There, you're safe, and I do feel like that you can get about, you know, what you'll spend on the trainer in 90 minutes. It might take you, 2.5 hours outside to get that same quality, unless you're on like a straight time trial road with no traffic, which is hard to find. So, um, I say, like I said, time efficiency, safety, and I do have to say that before a race, I do like to get outside at least a few times, because there is something that's a little different outside. There is like one that you can't really simulate on the trainer. So I feel like, it's important to get outside just a little bit before that race, just to keep your cornering skills sharp, descending skills sharp, and you get a little bit, the jumps outside feel, you just can't quite simulate on the trainer. But other than that, trainer's a great workout.
The some of the some cycling folks that will pick on us triathletes for not having good bike handling skills, and I like to tell them, you go out on a group ride. There's a great group ride I did a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles called the Montrose Ride, and I remember one of the first times I did that, and I had a tri bike. And actually would never get in aero on a group ride unless I was, off the back, off the front, something like that. They said, you can't be an aero. And I kind of looked over and I was like, yeah, I get it. You're a cyclist. I'm a triathlete. I get it. And at some point,
Yeah.
I said to him, because I also made the mistake of wearing a tri-top on a cycling day, got a little teasing on that, and said to this guy who was, sorry to say it, but a typical cyclist. And I said, well, if I had skinny little arms like that, I'd probably cover them up with a jersey too.
That was a good comeback. Yeah, there's something about the cyclist triathlon, um, you know, battle there. And I do have to say, though, I mean, I, put a cyclist out against a triathlete in a time trial, and I bet you the triathlete would win in that one.
They will say you guys are really strong, but really bad bike handlers. I mean, that's what I get all the time. It's like, oh, I said, is that personal with me, or is that just in general? Well, since you mentioned trainer, we get a chance to transition a little bit. In that wonderful blog that you did earlier this year, you mentioned that you were a fan of the Americans,
Hmm.
and that's something that for others who haven't watched that show, that's great to watch it on your trainer. I think they're on season 6, maybe season 7. And Carrie Russell. So are you into the Americans? Are you guys like caught up, or are you just getting into that?
So I watched the Americans a couple years ago, I believe, just on the plane. My husband kind of got me hooked onto it. He's like, "Hey, you should check out this show." And I think it was actually going to Alcatraz in 2000. Let's see, 16. Would that be right? Yeah. And then of course, I got hooked. I watched it like the whole plane ride there. Watched it in the hotel room. I think I watched it on a road trip on the way to Racine the following month, and then I started, watching it on the trainer. And back then, I believe there was 4 seasons, and then this winter I caught up. I think season 5 kind of was out on, or I finally had time, I should say, on my trainer to watch season 5. I haven't seen season 6 because it's I think it's playing currently, and I don't have it saved on like the Amazon Prime. I'm watching it on Amazon Prime. And however, I was motivating my father to work out with me this winter as a training partner. Because when you're downstairs in the basement, even if you're not doing the same workout as someone, it really helps to have just someone there. So I've been giving my dad bike workouts, and he got hooked on the Americans. So he wanted to keep coming over every day, or 4 or 5 times a week, mainly because he wanted to watch the Americans, but he also would do his bike workout with me as well. So I'm rewatching the series with him. Um, so yes, and I'm kind of like, it's always great to watch a series the second time through. You always pick up on little things that you miss.
We've had some our team's had some really good discussions about what to watch, what not to watch, and even how to make that more interesting. I think Game of Thrones has 66 episodes, and anytime there's a battle scene or somebody gets murdered, I think that's like a minute of zone four. Stand up and really like kind of a drinking game, but more of a cycling pain game.
Yeah, and I do, if I'm watching a show, like just kind of do an aerobic ride or a mixed interval ride, I'll sprint on the commercials or ride hard during the commercials and then just ride aerobic during the actual show. Because I can't, when I'm doing anything that's, like zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, I can't really focus very well on the show. Or if I guess threshold. If I'm riding like threshold or above, I prefer just listening to music. Um, but if I'm riding moderate, or easy, then I definitely prefer watching a show. So that's what's great with watching the series again with my dad. 'Cause even if I'm riding hard, I've already seen it, so I can kind of just like watch here and there and pick up, bits and pieces. So
Well, I just got I just got hooked on and consumed very quickly with my daughter the Good Place,
okay,
and I'm going to make that recommendation. It actually has Ted Danson in it from Cheer back in the day,
yeah,
and it's very surprisingly good, and I kind of got the same thing. You get sucked into it, and it's almost to the end of season 2. So put that on your list if you get a chance. It's definitely a thinking person comedy, and it's super quick. I'll have to also post some of the recommendations that we had a thread on our forum, and a lot of folks put a bunch of different recommendations of what they like to watch, and I'll have to make a nice list, and I'll link that to
yeah,
the podcast. Maybe you'll steal a couple. I think a couple of the other things that would be of interest is over 14 years. You have definitely gotten. Obviously, there's the balance of family life, being a mom of 2, managing sponsors, your training, the Olympics. Um, can you talk about injury and when you've had injury, if you've had injury, and what that was like, and how you get through that?
yeah. So I'd say back in my first major injury was back in 2007. And I remember what happened. I was racing in Lisbon, Portugal, and my foot kind of went in a crack during the run portion of the race. We ran, it was a World Cup in Lisbon, and we ran multiple loops around this wooden bridge, or that was a section of a wooden bridge. So I remember after that, I was like, oh man, I kind of sprained my ankle, but I didn't think too much of it. But over the course of the next year and a half, so this was through the Olympics and um, almost 2 years later, I knew something wasn't quite right. I'd had terrible pains in my calf, and when I was running, I couldn't really feel the bottom of my foot. This was on my left leg, and I just knew something was wrong. I couldn't lift my big toe. I would get tingles down my shin. So I just kind of kept searching and searching and searching for answers. I saw several different doctors, and I think when you have an injury, the most important thing is to get a correct diagnosis. And sometimes that just comes with persistence from you and just kind of that gut feeling, like, knowing is it this or is it that, or, like finding out what's wrong. And for me, I finally found out I had a nerve entrapment because a neurologist from California was visiting the training center, and he looked at me and he's like, "You have a nerve drop in this foot, and you have a blockage from that injury, that ankle roll. You develop some scar tissue over your nerve, your peroneal nerve." And he's like, "Come in and we'll check you out and we'll do a surgery." And that was that. So um, I was so relieved to actually have a diagnosis. And then I had the surgery in February of 2009. So it was almost 2 years after the initial injury, even though I was still able to race and train through it. Then after that, it still took 2 years for that strength to build up in that nerve. So I still had to do a lot of rehab. I still had a couple calf tears, I think in 2010, still due to that leg getting stronger. So that was, through that whole process, I really learned a lot about alternative treatments, like seeing PTs, you know, doing things for my body to make my body stronger overall, strength training. And then I'd say the second, for me, after Caroline was born, I started doing Pilates because I thought, wow, my stomach stretched out hugely. I need to strengthen the core. And I remember starting that up. And I feel like that has really helped me a lot in the last few years overall staying healthy. And then since Connor has been born, I started doing the only, I guess I could say PT work or, chiropractic work, massage work. I've kind of taken that all out based on time efficiency. And I've started doing Pilates reformer. And that has seemed to be kind of like that next step, because in addition to mat Pilates, I'm getting a bit of a, stretch. And I think in general, you have to kind of find out kind of what strength training works best for you, what physio works for you, whether it's seeing a PT, whether it's going a certain type of massage, whether it's seeing a chiropractor, because I mentioned before about running shoe. There's one shoe that fits best for that person, and what works for one person doesn't work for another person. The same thing, I think, with, treatment and recovery and, strength training. You just have to find what works best for you. Some people want to be in the weight room doing squats, and that's saying, that's good to, supplement. Some people want to do yoga. Some people want to do Pilates. Some people want to do massage. So I think it's just navigating, trying different things, seeing what works best, and not overtraining. Obviously, overtraining, picking up mileage too much can lead to injuries. I had, and then the other injury I had was after nursing my daughter for 11 months and doing extremely hard training and racing. I ended up with a stress fracture. Okay? Okay, sorry, my daughter. What's wrong? I ended up, okay, careful. I ended up with a stress fracture in my back, and that was my first that was my first stress fracture in my 20 years of racing, and I didn't realize that nursing can actually weaken your bones. So this time around, I've tried to just cut back on my mileage, and I haven't had any, knock on wood, any issues since. And also, I think I was training at the time in Florida and here in the summer, and I think losing so many additional electrolytes with the sweating, and now I've been training in winter, and that's actually helped. So that's my long-winded story about racing and training and injuries and just trying. That's the hardest part in sport is avoiding that injury, and it's devastating when you get that injury and having to bounce back.
Is that Connor joining us for the podcast?
And that's my daughter Caroline, who just came in. Dad was watching her, and she just jumped up on the desk and kind of fell down on the desk. So sorry about that.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. Well, we'll wrap, but one of the questions that I ask, and this has to be this is hopefully a good question that we've asked at least the last few times, is you've been doing this for 14 years, a lot of different levels. If you had one thing to change about triathlon right now, what would it be?
Wow, that's a great question. One thing to change about triathlon right now, what would it be? I would say I would just love to just add a few more shorter distance races in the country. I feel like there's been a lot of emphasis on, like, recently, just more on like 70.3s and Ironman, which is great. And I feel like a lot of people getting into the sport think about, oh, I want to do, go straight into the half or go straight into the Ironman. And I feel like, people can, hey, start off with the sprint and the Olympic and maybe have a few more, and I know those races are out there, but have a few more of the media and the print just kind of putting some emphasis on those races, because I think it's a great accomplishment completing that distance. And I feel like for most people with, a family and balancing that lifestyle, it's a great distance to continue to do year in and year out, rather than just focusing, maybe doing an Ironman and getting out of the sport for a couple of years.
Yeah, thank you for the, it's a good question. That was a great answer. We actually added the word sustainable to our mission statement: affordable, accessible, and sustainable. And, when you start looking at what the average person has in times of training, 6 to 8 hours, maybe 10 hours a week, that's probably good enough for an Olympic. And then, hey, if you want to ramp up into that 70.3, great. You've got the base fitness to do it. So yeah, we appreciate it. Well, Sarah Haskins, I have to tell you, we really appreciate it. For all those folks that are listening, it was very difficult to, from our part. I was sick for for at least a week and a half. Sarah was a bit under the weather at one point, and then the technology forces were all against us. So that we got this recorded and taped is really a testament to a lot of endurance. I really appreciate it, and to your husband, Nate, let him know I said thank you as well.
I will do, and I really appreciate you having me on the show. It was great to talk with you, Tom, and so apologize for the little one right here.
Oh, no apologies at all. That's fantastic. That's just part of life. That's great. Thank you. Sarah Haskins, 14-year pro, Olympic triathlete, mom, etc., wife, businesswoman, etc., etc. Thank you so much for being a guest on California Triathlon Soup.